Welcome to the Housing Choice Voucher Briefing video. In this video, we will explain the required releases and forms that each household member will need to complete and sign. We will discuss program rules and regulations. We will discuss what makes a rental unit affordable and how we calculate your portion of the rent. We will also review a sample voucher and explain the important details needed on the request for tenancy approval form located in your briefing packet. Please be aware that this video provides a brief description of all of the forms and handouts included in your packet. We strongly recommend that you read through all of the documents in your packet prior to watching this video and prior to signing. Please contact our office after you've viewed the video if you have any questions on a particular form or require further information on any topic. You may find it helpful to pause this video occasionally in order to locate the corresponding form in your briefing packet. Our first form is HUD Form 9886, Authorization for the Release of Information Form. By signing this form, you allow the Livingston County Section 8 Housing Program to obtain and verify wage information from current and past employers, Social Security Administration, unemployment compensation, and income information is reported to the IRS. We may also obtain verification from financial institutions. All adult household members age 18 and over must sign the reverse side of this form. Only the head of household need enter their Social Security number on the reverse side of this form. Consent for release of information. This form allows the housing authority to verify income, assets, child care expenses, medical expenses, and other things as indicated on this form. This also allows us to talk to your landlord when the lease-up documents are sent in. Every household member over the age of 18 will need to sign one of these forms. Release of information form, locally referred to as the criminal release. You are required to report any crime you have been convicted of to our office. Certain convictions could prohibit you from becoming a participant of the Housing Choice Voucher Program. This release allows us to investigate and/or obtain criminal records pertaining to you. The arrest disclosure form. Each adult household member over the age of 18 is required to report any current or prior convictions. When listing convictions on this form, please add the name of the person convicted, followed by the criminal conviction and the date of conviction. The form must be signed by the head of household and all adult household members. Program participant certification, tenant responsibilities. At initial lease-up and every year annually at recertification, you will be required to certify to these items. You certify that all of the information provided on the household composition, income, family assets, and items for allowances and deductions is accurate and complete, and that you reviewed the application form and the interview worksheet, and you certify the information shown is true, correct, and complete. If you provide false information, you'll lose your rental assistance. You may need to repay the funds you were not entitled to and may be prosecuted for fraud. You are required to report immediately in writing any change in income amounts or sources. You are required to report immediately in writing any change in household size or when a person moves in or out of your home. If someone stays with you 50% of the time, or 4 nights a week, or if someone stays with you for 30 days in a calendar year, you must report their presence and income to the housing authority. You must report any new source of income, even if it is a part-time job, for $5 a week. whether it's on or off the books. You must also report any time a current income source changes. You must report when someone moves in or out of your unit, and it is your responsibility to remember this. All reporting must be done in writing, with backup third-party documentation. What counts as income? Here are some examples: wages, Social Security income, child support, and any other sources that you are questioned about on your application. You must disclose any other federal housing assistance that you are or have received and whether or not any money is owed to the housing program. You also certify that you will use your rental as your primary residence and that you will not live anywhere else without notifying the housing authority immediately in writing. You certify that you will not obtain duplicate federal housing assistance while on the current program. You are required to cooperate in supplying all information needed to determine your eligibility, level of benefits, and to verify your true circumstances. Your cooperation includes attending pre-scheduled meetings and completing and signing necessary forms. Your failure or refusal to do so will result in delays or the termination of your assistance. You understand that if you miss 2 appointments to recertify for Section 8, it may result in the termination of your assistance. If you are suspected or convicted of the unlawful manufacture, distribution, dispersion, possession, or use of a controlled substance while receiving rental assistance, is grounds for immediate termination of your rental assistance. You understand that knowingly supplying false, incomplete, or inaccurate information is a felony and is punishable under federal and state criminal law. You understand that knowingly supplying false, incomplete, or inaccurate information is grounds for termination of your housing assistance and prosecution. This concludes the information on the tenant responsibilities. By signing this form, you certify to all of what we have discussed. Signature of all household adults is required and the date signed. Please locate the reasons for termination of assistance in your briefing packet. In accordance with federal law, this office may terminate rental assistance to a tenant family for the following reasons. The family is guilty of program abuse or fraud. The family violates their obligations under the program as listed on the voucher. The family refuses to supply any certification, release of information, or documentation which the housing authority determines necessary for the administration of the program, or the family vacates the dwelling unit without proper notice to the housing authority. Other reasons our office can terminate your assistance: the family does not use the dwelling as its principal residence. The family does not pay their share of the rent or other violations of the lease. The family refuses to pay the housing authority amounts due under a repayment agreement or an agreement for damages or unpaid rent. The family does not pay for utilities they were responsible for paying. We may terminate your assistance if the family commits any serious or repeated violations of the lease. The family engages in drug-related activity or violent criminal activity, including criminal activity by any family member. The family engages in or threatens abusive or violent behavior toward our Section 8 personnel. If your assistance is terminated for one of the above reasons, both you and the owner will be provided with a 30-day written notice of termination. Your notice will state the reason for the termination, the effective date of the termination, the family's right to request an informal hearing, the family's responsibility to pay the full contract rent to the owner if they remain in occupancy. Anyone over the age of 18 must sign. By signing, you certify that you have read the above and understand what you've read. Protect your family from lead. This handout provides information on the sources of lead in your home, lead hazards, and symptoms of lead-based paint poisoning, and discusses how to limit your exposure. Watch out for lead-based paint. Lead-based paint is commonly found in homes constructed before 1978. This form provides information on the sources, hazards, and symptoms of lead-based paint poisoning. The head of household is required to sign this form. Disclosure of information on lead-based paint and lead-based paint hazards. To expedite the lease-up process, this form is provided to you in advance of leasing a unit. We ask that you initial sections C and D and sign where it indicates lessee. Your landlord is required to report any known cases of lead in your rental unit. You will receive a completed and signed copy of this form back once the owner has completed his or her portion of the form and provided their signature. Owner responsibilities. This form explains the landlord's responsibilities upon entering into contract with the housing authority. In short, owners are responsible for the general maintenance of the unit. They collect security deposits and collect the tenant's share of rent. It is the owner's responsibility to screen tenants, enforce tenant obligations, and pay any utilities as agreed upon in the lease. Citizenship Declaration. This form is used to declare the citizenship status for all household members. Each household member should be listed on this form, followed by their date of birth, citizenship status, and signature if over 18 years old. The head of household should sign for all household members under the age of 18. Any family member age 18 and over will sign on the signature line following their name. The head of household then signs the lower portion of this form. Note that members of the household have the right not to declare their status and still reside in the household. Subsidies will be prorated in these instances per federal regulation. Portability Information Sheet. Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher is a federal program. Portability means that you may take your rental assistance voucher and move anywhere. You are subsidized, not the unit. This form explains your obligations as well as the housing authority's obligations. It also explains who is eligible to port. If you do not use your option to port now as an initial port and you lease up in Livingston County, you must stay in the unit you're in for 1 year before you're eligible to port again. Any time after that 1 year mark, you may request to port. As a Housing Choice Voucher Program participant in good standing, a housing agency must accept you into their program. You do not need to meet initial eligibility requirements. The Housing Choice Voucher Program is a national program. What is a good place to live? Please locate the booklet in your briefing packet. This booklet explains how your unit must pass HUD Housing Quality Standards, otherwise known as HQS. All rental units are subject to an inspection at opening and annually at recertification. This handout explains the areas included in our inspection and what the requirements are. Here are a few of the minimum housing requirements. Upon issuance, a housing choice voucher is valid for 60 days. An expiration date will be printed on the voucher. This next form explains our policy on granting extensions. You can request an extension if you are actively seeking housing and have not successfully located a unit. You must request an extension in writing before your voucher terminates. If your voucher expires and you do not request an extension, you will be denied and you will have to start the application process all over again. The voucher extension and search record form is the document you will sign and return to our office if you are requesting an extension of your voucher. You can log your housing searches on this form. Our approval of your request is subject to program rules and your ability to provide proof that you have been searching for housing. This is a sample voucher. When we have completed our eligibility determination, you will receive a voucher. We will send you an original and a copy for you to keep. You will need to sign the original and return it to our office. The voucher states that you're eligible to participate in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The reverse side of the voucher explains the participant's obligations. For example, you will see that you are not allowed to rent from a close relative. You need to read this form and abide by the housing regulations. Request for tenancy approval form. Once you have located a unit to rent, you will provide this form to the owner or landlord to complete. The owner will answer several questions about the rental and provide a description of the unit. This is the form that will tell us who is responsible to pay certain utilities such as electric, gas, water, sewer, etc. Once the owner has completed the form, both the head of household and owner must sign where indicated. Incomplete forms will delay the process and will not be accepted. The owner must provide complete information on the rental unit in order for our office to determine if the unit is affordable. This form begins the lease-up process. This is the first step of becoming a participant onto our program. You're probably wondering, what can you look for? How much can you spend? What are your limits? In your briefing packet, you will find a form titled, How to Find an Affordable Unit. Please locate that now. All apartments do not include all utilities. For example, Unit A may include all utilities, while Unit B only includes water and sewer. HUD had to find a way to make it easy to see if Unit A and Unit B could be comparable in order to subsidize the units. They created a utility chart in order to compare the different units based on the utilities and services that the tenant must pay for. You'll find a sample utility chart in your folder. These amounts may be included in your affordability calculation, depending on the unit you select. Section 242 of the Federal 2014 Appropriation Act says that the utility allowance amount for families is limited to the lower of the utility allowance amount for the family voucher size or the utility allowance for the family unit size as rented by the family. In some cases, a family with a 2-bedroom voucher may locate a 3-bedroom unit which is considered affordable under the 2-bedroom standards. In this instance, the family would only receive the appropriate utility allowance for the voucher size of 2 and not the rental size of 3. We have enclosed a sample utility chart in each briefing packet. The agency will use the appropriate amount for the unit size you are renting and the correct utilities based on HUD rules. Keep in mind, if heat is included in the rent price or if a service is paid for by the landlord, there is no allowance to the tenant. In the example to the right, this is a 1-bedroom voucher. The tenant is responsible to pay for electric, electric heating source, electric cooking source, and trash collection. The total utility allowance for this tenant would be $168, as seen by the items circled in black. In your briefing packet is a blue form titled How to Find an Affordable Rental Unit. If you rent a unit at or below the payment standard, you pay 30% of your adjusted income as a total tenant payment, also known as TTP. You can rent a unit that costs more than the payment standard, however, you pay the difference. And you are never allowed to pay more than 40% of your adjusted gross income for an initial lease-up. This form will help you determine the affordability. What is gross rent? Gross rent is the contract rent plus utility allowances. Contract rent is the amount of money the landlord is renting the unit for. The utility allowance, as you just learned, is the allowance for utility costs that will be the tenant's responsibility to pay. How is your share of the rent determined? The total tenant payment, which is 30% of your adjusted gross income, plus any amount the gross rent is above the payment standard, minus any utility allowances, equals the tenant's share of rent. This may be less than the TTP. Summary of Program Highlights form. This is the gross rent calculation. This is the formula for how your share of rent is calculated. Remember that you will pay more if the unit you rent has a gross rent above the payment standard. The reverse side of Program Highlights sheet shows how we calculate your adjusted gross income. Your total tenant payment range is between line numbers 1 and 2 on the blue affordable rent calculation sheet discussed previously. Sample calculation. Here we show how we calculate adjusted gross income, total tenant payment, and max total tenant payment. As you can see in this example, we take the monthly SSI and SSD incomes and multiply each by 12 to obtain an annual total. After adding both income sources together, we arrive at the gross annual income of $7,824. From there, we add in any interest income from assets over $5,000. This household's bank account value is well under the allowable limit, and therefore we are not counting any interest income in relation to this bank account. The current annual gross income is $7,824. We will now apply any allowances that this household is eligible for to reduce the annual income to the adjusted annual income. In this scenario, the household has a disabled family member and is receiving an allowance of $400. Annual gross income of $7,824 less the $400 allowance gives us an adjusted annual income of $7,424. Now that we have our adjusted gross income, we can use the calculations below to determine the total tenant payment and max total tenant payment. Using our income, TTP, and max TTP amounts from the previous slide, we can now determine if the unit is affordable and calculate the TTP range and the gross rent range. You are entitled to a certain number of bedrooms based on household size. If you rent a unit the size of your voucher, you get that payment standard. If you rent a smaller unit, the smaller payment standard is used. If you rent a larger unit, you will only be allowed the payment standard on your voucher. Utility allowances are based on the actual unit size rented or the utility amount for the family voucher size, whichever is lower. We cannot tell you exactly what you can afford until we determine the type of building and verify the bedroom size of the unit. We will review the request for tenancy approval, RTA, to make sure rent and utilities are affordable and comparable to other units in the area. Important information on the Housing Choice Voucher Program. By signing this form, you acknowledge that you have been provided with information on how we calculate your portion of the rent. You acknowledge receiving the affordability calculation and what happens if rent is increased. In the event your rent is increased over the affordable levels, you have the option of negotiating a lower rent amount with your landlord. In the event the landlord is unwilling to decrease the rent, we can issue you a voucher to find another unit that is affordable. The head of household and all adult household members over the age of 18 are required to sign this form. Section 8, Guidelines for Participants. This booklet explains the materials reviewed with you today. It has the family obligations and grounds for denial or termination of assistance. This is your program guide. Fair housing is the right to choose housing free from unlawful discrimination. Federal, state, and local fair housing laws protect people from discrimination in housing transactions such as rentals, sales, lending, and insurance. This handout provides information about your rights and the complaint process. It explains what to do if you feel that your rights have been violated. In your briefing packet, there is information regarding our informal hearing and review process. This form explains the review process for applicants and hearing process for participants who dispute housing authorities' actions. All requests for an informal hearing must be in writing and mailed to our housing office. Here we have the Landlord Information Guide. This packet explains our program to your landlord. If a landlord has any questions, you can refer him or her to our office. Feel free to give them a copy of this Landlord Information Guide or give them your copy. We can always send you more. Federal Privacy Act Statement. Please read through this statement. The U.S. Privacy Act of 1974 protects your right to privacy. The head of household and all adult household members over the age of 18 need to read and sign this form. We've enclosed a good housekeeping brochure in your packet. It's important for you to know that you are required to keep your unit in decent, safe, and sanitary condition. If you fail to do so, you could lose your rental assistance. You must keep both the interior and exterior of your dwelling clean and free of litter and trash. Enterprise Income Verification, otherwise known as EIV. EIV is the system we use to obtain employment and income verification for applicants and participants. Your responsibility is to disclose accurate information regarding all household members, name, date of birth, social security number, income, and expenses. The information you provide is matched up with the income information obtained via this system. Tenancy Addendum. HUD requires this form be attached to all leases signed under the HCV program. The addendum incorporates Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher requirements into the lease agreement. Both the tenant and the landlord are required to sign this form. All parties will receive a completed signed copy. Here is a sample lease. HUD prefers your landlord use their own lease. However, if they do not have one, we will provide one for use. Please visit the New York State Attorney General's website at ag.ny.gov to view this handy booklet about tenant rights. If you do not have access to the internet and would like a copy mailed to you, please contact our office and request a copy. This book explains your rights in New York State as a tenant. It also includes information on landlord's rights. Please locate the form titled Information Packet. This form lists all of the items we have discussed today regarding the Housing Choice Voucher Program. By signing this form, you acknowledge receiving the briefing packet and either attending a briefing session or viewing a briefing video. You may be interested to know that Livingston County also provides assistance for the Housing Choice Voucher Homeownership Program. There are some conditions to eligibility for this program. You must have been leased up under the Section 8 program for at least 1 year. You must have a minimum income of $17,000 per year. The head or co-head of your household must be employed full-time and have been employed for 2 years. And you will need to qualify for a mortgage and be able to secure financing for your home purchase. Section 8 does not provide mortgage financing. This program, however, would allow you to use your Section 8 housing assistance payment to help pay for your mortgage. The employment requirements may be waived for disabled households. You would also be required to attend and satisfactorily complete the Pre-Assistance and Homeownership Counseling Program. If you are interested in this program, please contact our office for more information. Important statement about HEAP, SNAP, and other offices located within the Department of Social Services building. If you are responsible for paying heat in your unit, you may be eligible for a HEAP benefit. Section 8 does not count HEAP benefits as income. Section 8 does not count SNAP benefits as income. However, your housing assistance may affect your SNAP budget, and you should report receipt of Section 8 benefits to your SNAP worker. Please note that the HEAP, SNAP, Public Assistance, Medicaid, and Section 8 Housing Office are all located within the Department of Social Services building. We do not have access to other program records at the Department of Social Services, nor does any other program have access to your Section 8 records. Each program is separate of the other. It is important for you to know that we do not have access to information you've provided to other programs, such as income information. Any changes reported about your household should be reported individually to all programs that you receive assistance from separately. Any change in your household composition, address, household assets, or income must be reported to our office. Changes must be reported within 10 days of the change and must be in writing. Under normal operating conditions, Section 8 does not provide security deposits. However, during the COVID pandemic, CARES funding may be available to assist you with security deposit assistance. Participants and voucher holders should contact our office to inquire about this assistance. You're ready to begin your housing search. Please begin searching for a unit immediately. Once you have located a unit, have the owner or landlord complete the request for tenancy approval. And remember, both you and the owner must sign the form. Or, if you wish to stay in the unit you are in, have your current landlord fill out the request for tenancy approval form and submit to our office for review. Any documents that required signature will need to be returned to our office. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions. 585-243-7300. This concludes our briefing video. Thank you for viewing.